Added
Yes,
to
what
the
it's there
above.
for.
Yes, that's what it's there for. And we write it down. There's a number of things we do. Okay, yes. So, in the interest of figuring out what it's there for, what have we talked about the last couple weeks? What is the context we are approaching these verses in? Yep, Paul's the one writing it. If I had asked who wrote this, that would be a great answer. Doctor says a doxology. What is a doxology?
It's all Greek. Hint, hint.
Yes. Yes. Correct. So, what is Paul giving God glory for? So we're taking these answers and we're walking towards a conclusion now. What is Paul giving God glory for in the last section? I'll give you a hint. He's giving him glory for something we've been talking about for the last 3 weeks. This is not a trick question. Yet. Lincoln found a way to make it a trick question.
Sorry, I couldn't resist that one. That one was too good.
that was very well played. I'm very proud
Thank
of you right now. My respect for you just grew immensely. Okay. All right. So Paul is giving God glory in the previous section for the unity of the church. Been a big theme we've been talking about for the last 3 weeks. So we're going to talk about this week as well. And pro tip, we'll be talking about it for the next few weeks as well. It's a big theme in Ephesians. The unity of the church. So that is, we're moving from the doxology of that to kind of a practical look at how that looks. So we're going to talk about some more, think about the rationale behind it a little bit more here tonight. And then next week, we'll start looking at specifics. For the next few weeks, we'll be looking at the specifics of how this works out. How do we live out that unity? All right. So, a little bit on unity before we begin. We've talked about how the church is one body. We've talked about how there's unity in the church. We don't always think about what that means. I have had the privilege of watching some very some very good operators, if you will, tactical teams, do things like room clearing and going up against opposing forces and different training sessions. It's really cool to watch. These guys who work together and train together a lot, they will move through a building, move through a structure, move through rooms, as if they were one body, if you will. So you'll have all of their guns covering the correct angles. Everything's being covered at once. They're all adapting to the situation, as they encounter a new room, and nobody's talking. They're just sticking to the plan and sticking to their nonverbal communications. It's really cool to see. The If you're on the opposing end of that, it's a bad day for you because it's more than just facing 2 or 4 or however many guys. It's almost as if you're facing a multiple of that because their force multiplies um, by them being able to cover each other's backs. When we were in college, see, yep, that's a very good point. It's the exact opposite of what you guys hear when you're in a channel with us on PUBG. Yep. um, that would be a a force negative there. Another good example of that would be when I was in college. We had this Friday night group of Nerf wars, where after the professors and the staff all went home, um, there was about, depending upon the night, 20 to 50 of us that would bust out Nerf guns and play uh, either deathmatch or team deathmatch or defuse the bomb, like the Counter-Strike mode. That's literally what we called it. Gotta be careful saying that too loud around the campus, but yeah, different game modes and stuff on campus. The guys who would do it a lot, um, the music students were the ones you had to watch out for, by the way. The guys who would do it a lot, we actually found some SWAT training manuals and did different drills for room clearing and stuff. So we weren't as good as the guys that I've seen and watched, but we were the guys who did it a lot pretty decent compared to the average person. So one of the things that we had as a tradition was everybody who was new, whenever we had a group of new people come, they would face off against the veterans. And one night we were doing a fundraiser night for a missions fest, and we had the number was like 50 new people show up, and that night there was 9 veterans, so there's 50 versus 9, and we looked at the odds and said, it's too stacked. And but the newbies said, "Oh, come on, like play it out." We're like, no, you misunderstand. It's stacked too much against you guys. So they actually put they put me on the newbie team, and they had the veterans, the guys who had trained together a lot. They had them on the other team. So you'd think it'd be a slaughter, right? That just the numbers would overrun them, and it was a slaughter. But the specific score was it was 35-5. 35 casualties for the new people and 5 casualties for the veterans. So yeah, it was the good example of what happens when a team does not work together and has not worked together before. It can be absolutely gutted by people who are working together as a unit. Another example of this is horses. If you ever go to a county fair, if you're a redneck like me, and watch the horse pulls, you'll have a horse that can pull, I don't know, it's like 4,000, 5,000 pounds or 9,000 pounds. And then you'll have another horse that can pull roughly the same. But when you hook them up to the same cart, they'll be able to pull more than double what they were pulling earlier. A lot of times you'll see like a 30% lift. And it's because, yeah, it's an interesting phenomena. They're stronger together as a unit than they are individually. So we in the church are given a task. We're given a task from God. We've talked about that. We're not just saved for the sake of being saved. We're saved to something, not just saved from something, but to something. That is a task we can only accomplish as a unit, only accomplish as a body of who's working together for one purpose. So that is why this is so important. That is why Paul keeps harping on this, and we're going to continue to harp on it for weeks coming up in Ephesians, because the Christian life is one that's to be lived in community, not one to be lived alone. So, without further pontification, let us read the 6 verses we're going to be going through tonight. Can I volunteer to read the Ephesians 4, 1 through 6? Go ahead, Mario.
I therefore, a prisoner for the Lord, urge you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you have been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to the one hope that belongs to your call. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God, and one Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all.
Thank you. All right. Verse 1. I therefore, and we talked about what the therefore is there for, a prisoner of the Lord. What does he mean by that? Why does he use that title for himself? Several people have started replies, then stopped replies, then restarted replies. Go ahead, Cass.
Doctor said what I was going to say.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of a double entendre, right? He has talked about how the apostles are kind of a prisoners of God sort of thing before, in regards to how he specifically was saved almost against his will by his Damascus experience. But he is also literally a prisoner, right? So double entendre means has two meanings. He's a prisoner because of what he has done for God. So I therefore, a prisoner of the Lord, urge you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you have been called. Interesting. What does he mean by that? Go ahead, Mario. Sorry. So I can't help myself.
One of these days you may do that in real life as well. Just be careful. But then again, hey, makes a cool teacher, I guess. I was about to say, when you are saved now, don't walk like the world, don't talk like the world, so to speak. Since you're saved now, you can't just willy-nilly do whatever you want, so to speak. You should have different desires now and all that. So I'm pretty sure you get what I mean there.
Yeah.
I don't know how to be more specific there without maybe saying something that's a little offensive. But yeah, I leave it at that. And if you want more,
That's a good answer.
Thank you.
What else? What else could he mean? It's heard an entire sermon series. Notably, he doesn't give any specific examples from that sermon series. So his claim is not substantiated. Yes, we're still only in verse 1. Yep.
Sorry, I have a friend texting me about something, and I'm trying to split attention. Forgive me for not being the source of all answers.
Splitting attention doesn't generally work very well.
I know. I'm trying to tell this guy that I'm splitting attention, and I'm a little busy. It's going great.
Question is, just to repeat, what does Paul mean by walk in a manner worthy to what you are called? Or to that which you have been called, to be correct. Yeah. So there's lots of things you could draw from this, right? Specifically within this context, what have we been talking about the last few weeks? Unity. Okay, good. Whew. We're getting it. Okay. You guys are killing me here. Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. We've been talking about unity. So the specifics he's about to list off then relate to unity. Now, there's a lot of things you could draw from this. A lot of things you could draw from this. And a lot of people have. But within the context of this passage, he's talking about Christian unity and walking in that calling of the oneness of the body of Christ. So, notably, he does not say, don't cause division. He says, walk in a manner worthy of your calling. So he's telling you to do something, not to not do something. This is, I think, where we go wrong in the church sometimes. So we focus on what not to do instead of what to do. And it's always easier to do something than it is to focus on not doing something. Because if you're focusing on not doing something, you're still focusing on that thing. If I tell you, be really careful not to think about pink elephants, promise you, you're going to be thinking about pink elephants. Go ahead, Winged.
On that note, interesting thing. I'm going to dovetail this in. I promise it'll make sense. We recently did a sermon series on the 10 Commandments in my church, and my pastor challenged us. We all know the 10 Commandments. Everybody knows the 10 Commandments. But he said, don't think about them as commandments. Think about them as 10 blessings. It changes your mode of thinking when you think about them not as things, not as these prohibitions on things, but things that God allows you to do.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Very good point. It's something we talk about a lot in competition shooting, and I apologize that so many of my examples come from that, but I've learned so many life lessons. If you look at the stage and you start thinking to yourself, okay, don't shoot that no shoot as it flies in front of the other target on a swinger. If you think to yourself, don't shoot the no shoot, you're going to shoot the no shoot every single time. In fact, it's one of the ways we mess each other. If you want to really, really mess with somebody's game before they're walking up to shoot, just whisper to them, don't think about that. Don't hit that no shoot. And they'll drill it every single time. So, like, the more you focus on trying to not do something, the more that becomes part of your subconscious. What you need to focus on is what you need to do, right? The positive thing. And so Paul is telling them here is, walk in the manner worthy of how you're called means do the right thing. Walk in unity. Be who you are. Do what you do, as Tony Dungy would say.
Expert level cults reference there.
Yeah. But the reason why he would say that is the same reason why we don't say, I'm just trying to screw with somebody, don't hit the no shoot. Because what you're trying to do is, it's like trying to tell yourself not to be nervous. If you fill your mind with don't be nervous, you're just thinking about the nerves, right? But if you say, okay, just do your job, do what you do, be who you are, in the sense that walk in accordance to your calling, do what God has saved you to do. That's giving you something positive to focus on and a guidepost to look at, right? to walk towards instead of trying to look down off the tightrope and go, don't fall off the tightrope. All right. We spent enough time on verse 1. So I was going to get into specifics of what that calling is. So, verse 2, with all humility and gentleness. Okay, humility. The word used for humility there is a word that I'm not going to try and pronounce yet.
They make me do it. Come on, man. Give it. Oh gosh. Okay. Nope. Take it back. You're good.
my Greek pronunciation is not that good yet.
Panophrosine? No, I just pronounced that like it's a drug, which is ironic. Panophrosine?
Hey, drugs.
Peinofrosine.
Said the Austrian.
I'll say that's very German.
Hey, Austria has some advantage there. You read Greek a little bit like German.
True. Oh shoot, I missed some hands. First Kessa and then Mario, and then we'll go into this word.
No, it was actually just for pronunciation.
I got distracted by the pronunciation. This on a somewhat personal note, when he says therefore, and then he goes into the specifics of walking worthy of the calling. The passage in Ephesians 3:14 through 21 is the reason we can do the things that he's asking us to do. God's provision is good enough, even when sometimes our situation is a bitter pill to swallow. We're struggling with baggage. He really can get us through that.
Yeah, very good point. Anybody else on verse 1? Before we move on to the non-drug word. Pianoforcine, I think is how you'd say that. There. Be happy, Wingen.
Sounds Greek to me.
So that word was a word that was, according to John Stott, never, more likely, probably very rarely, used positively by the Greeks. It was, the reason for that is the Greek culture is very much an honor, kind of pride-based culture. Read the Iliad and the Odyssey if you don't believe me. You'll come around to my way of viewing it pretty quickly. And humility, therefore, because of honor and pride-based culture, humility is not something that is generally looked up to. There were exceptions. Socrates is pretty humble, but for the most part, humility was considered a negative thing. So for Paul to be saying that this is something good, something that's part of our calling, something that we should be walking in, is probably a pretty tough pill for the Ephesian and the surrounding churches to swallow. A little bit of a repulsive concept to them. Gentleness, on the other hand, is something different. Word for that is praetos, not kratos. This is something different. But what does gentleness mean? King James translates it meekness.
I was gonna say, is it the same word that's used in Galatians?
I don't know. You're the one with the concordance.
Touche. Well done. I will. Please hold. But honestly, do you know?
I don't know. No,
Okay.
but I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity to be snarky.
Okay. It is the same word.
So what does it mean, gentleness? Or meekness, or
You want the
pathos?
old Baptist? You want the old Baptist definition?
We're like 90% Baptist here. Why not?
Meekness, as it was always explained to me, was power under control.
And that is correct. The Baptists are, I was gonna say usually right, but that may be offensive. And we're
Wow,
talking. We are in a study about Christian unity, so Baptists think that they're usually right. No, but they are correct in this instance. That is a word that means strength under control. Aristotle actually used this as a positive thing. He saw this trait as kind of a middle ground between being too angry and freaking out about everything and apathy and not caring about anything. So he saw it as kind of like a controlled passion sort of thing. And since Aristotle was a pretty influential thinker for Greek culture, that's the connotation that his readers would have had in mind. So, covered humility, covered gentleness, patience. What is patience?
I feel like I have a question here, but it's going to sound real familiar.
What is your question?
The same word used in Galatians.
I don't know. You're the one with the concordance.
There we go. Now, my concordance is King James. So, do you know how the King James happens to pronounce? How do you refer to it in Ephesians? I don't have my King James on me.
I don't offhand.
Okay, I'm assuming it's
Not as good of a Baptist
temperance.
as I once was. Sorry, I can't help myself.
That reformed thing.
I can't help myself.
Temperance. No, it's not pronounced that in Ephesians, but I have the number. Okay, let's find out if it's patience. It's okay to answer while I'm looking it up.
Yeah.
Isn't it long suffering? Because with all lowliness and meekness, with long suffering, forbearing,
Yep.
one another in love.
Are you holding the King James? Because if you are, then good for you.
That sounds right to me.
Ephesians 4:2. There it is. It is not the same word.
So, what does patience or long suffering mean?
I'll say endurance under duress.
Doctor with the violence twice. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's kind of resilience would be another way of putting it, but
Ooh, +1 for that. Nice.
Yeah. That's a phrase, a term that's popular right now, but it's a good term. It doesn't mean that everything's great. It means that you're going to stick with it to endure while it's not being great, right? Generally has the idea of waiting for something. Yeah, patience. Anybody who has a kid knows what patience is. So, Kessa, this is something that is close to her heart, I'm sure.
Children are a blessing.
Those of us who put up with football. Sorry, I have to throw the cheap football shot in there. We're patient. Arguably, football is patient with us, but that's another story.
It's a two-way street.
Yeah, that's how we keep the unity, huh? See, we're tying this back to the section. Yeah, so patience, bearing with one another in love. Yeah, bearing with one another. So, as the idea of literally bearing one another's burdens, staying in the relationship, being patient with one another, putting up with one another in love. Doesn't mean we don't address conflict, but it does mean that we approach one another in a spirit of humility and gentleness and patience as we bear with one another. Eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. What does that mean? Verse 3. Correct. Yep. That's a good way of putting it, Kessa. Are we generally good at this? Are we generally eager to maintain unity in a spirit of peace in the Western, so European and American church? I'm going to assume
Sorry,
from that
was
reaction,
that out loud?
I'm going to assume from that reaction that Winged thinks no. The question is, in the Western church, so European and American, are we generally good at being eager to maintain unity in the spirit?
Whew, Doc.
Doc with the savagery in the chat.
That was a little savage.
Go ahead, Mario. While Mario is typing, I will continue the question, take it the next step. Yeah, I would say that from our reactions, we think that the answer to that question is no. I think that we generally look for ways to look for conflict with each other instead of trying to look for ways to unify and to bear with one another. Why? Why is that? So the answer is no. I would say from our reaction, we're not very good at this. Why aren't we very good at this? Doctor has a very insightful answer in the chat. We'll wait for a few more answers to come through too. Martin Luther. Doctor says we like being better. I would agree with that. I would say that's probably a mark of lacking in what attribute?
5-letter word.
Yeah.
Or, sorry, the lack of the. Yes, you're right, Doc. The presence of the opposite.
Counting my fingers, going, "Oh, I ain't right." Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, lack of humility. Exactly. Yeah, we like being better. We like being right. So therefore, we generally aren't looking to solve the problem in a way that is preserving in a way that's helpful towards unity. Go ahead, Kess.
My personal experience, what makes it hard for me to get along with others is if I don't really believe God is on my side and looking out for me and taking care of my needs, then I've got to take care of my own needs. And that involves a certain amount of clawing and being overly defensive.
That's pride at its core, isn't it? If you don't believe God's really out looking out for the best of you, then you don't trust him. If you don't trust him, it means you don't trust his word, which means you trust yourself more than him, which is ultimately pride in the fact that you believe that you are more capable of taking care of yourself than God is, right?
Logic seems sound to me. So when I say this, I'm not trying to be prideful and criticize the. I'm not trying to be prideful and criticize the Western Church as an outsider. I say this as an insider, as somebody who has also not handled conflicts in the right way before, not being eager to maintain the unity and the spirit of the bond of peace, but instead looking to put people down and to show how much better I am than them. There we go. Get all the conjunctions in the right place. And that leads to more division. The other element of this, as Kessa said, is being unwilling to address the conflict, because there are issues that we do need to have a quote unquote fight over, for the sake of unity. There are issues that need to be addressed in the church, and we've seen this in a high profile way in the Catholic Church, in some Protestant churches lately, but specifically in the Catholic Church with some of those scandals where the Catholic Church did not address abuses of power, did not have the conflict when it was the appropriate time to have the conflict, and now it's causing all sorts of divisions. Secret agent of the Eastern Church. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. But outed. That's how I speak good Greek. Just kidding. Any more on this before we get too far off the rails? Down
Too
the
late.
Eastern Church line. Go ahead, Kess.
I'm going to refer back to Ephesians 3:14 through 21. If you are rooted and grounded in love, then it becomes much less necessary to look out for yourself in that kind of way.
Yeah. Very good point. Yeah, that's true too. Anybody else before we move on to the last three verses? But spent a lot of time here. It's a relatively simple three verses, but just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy, right? There's a difference between being easy and simple. But if it's important. Yep. All right. Yeah, exactly. Verses 4 through 6. There is one body and one spirit, just as you were called to the one hope that belongs to your call. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all, through all, and in all. This is the grounds for our unity. There is one body and one spirit. One body. What is being referred to there? Yes, church. Exactly. funny because some people, myself included, are guilty of. Let me rephrase this. Baptists are guilty of um, sort of ranking other denominations in like how good their theology is. Well, I'd take a Lutheran over a Catholic, and I'd take an Eastern Orthodox over a Catholic, but I'd probably take the Lutheran over the Eastern Orthodox. Take an Anglican over the Eastern Orthodox, though. We kind of like
all of that. I would align with all of that. Yeah.
See, it's real. A specific example. We're guilty of judging other denominations by certain standards, right? And the people in them are sort of more or less Christian, right? So, probably pretty comfortable with somebody in the Presbyterian Church. They're wrong on a lot of things, but a lot of people are wrong on a lot of things, but they're not wrong on a ton of things. Like probably more comfortable with them than somebody in like an AG church. Probably take Anglican over Catholic. Eastern Orthodox kind of a wild card. They're kind of like the first cousin removed. So we kind of play these games with ourselves, right? We rank them like, they're kind of in the body, kind of not, sort of thing. Can I give them spiritual points, if you will? Ironically, the people who are always on the top of that spreadsheet, that particular flow chart, are ourselves. Which should show you something wrong with it to begin with. But that's obviously a wrong thing, right? Yes, we have disagreements within the body. Yes, and some of these disagreements are serious. But we are one body, and there's not one of us that are more valuable or one branch that's more valuable than the rest. There's not degrees of salvation, right? So yes, it's important to I think that there are significant and important theological disagreements, but I think it's important to recognize that when we have these disagreements, these things do not affect our value before God and our value as part of the body. There is one body and one spirit. All right. One spirit being the Holy Spirit, of course, who dwells in I've got a list of favorite Catholics, by the way, Kess. It's a real thing. No, they're not all bad. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm undermining everything I just said. One spirit. What's the one spirit being referred to? The Holy Spirit. Good answer. Dwells in all believers. Okay. I'm giving you guys answers. I'm getting soft. Just as you were all called to the one hope that belongs to your call. The one hope being, of course, the gospel. We've talked about this before. The gospel of our salvation and of our unity with one another. No, you guys. A broken man fell from the chat. Yep. One Lord, one faith, one baptism. Funny story. I had a conversation with somebody about this one time who was claiming that there's multiple baptisms. There's your baptism when you're saved, your spiritual baptism. And then there's the physical baptism, and then there's the baptism of the Holy Spirit later. And they were saying that the Holy Spirit baptism kind of makes you a better Christian. So it's like kind of like two tiers: those who have been baptized in the Spirit and those who haven't. Generally, being baptized in the Spirit involves speaking in tongues and having some sort of ecstatic experience. And I use this verse to argue against that, and I said, no, it says there's one baptism. They go, well, when Paul says there's one baptism, he doesn't actually mean there's one baptism. I'm like, oh, okay.
My bad.
There must be a different Greek word for one there. I looked it up, and no, it's just the one. Yeah. So one baptism, as in literally one baptism, like one. We're all on equal terms here. One God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. Interesting that it ends with one God and Father to kind of put us all in our place, right? why are none of us more valuable than the other? Because none of us are God. Because none of us are the one who is ultimately saving us. None of us. And we have to remember that we're all working for God as part of the body, right? So,
Seems legit.
what's that?
Seems legit.
Yeah. So, in case we didn't get the whole humility thing earlier, it's ending it with one God and Father who is over all and through all and in all. So, when we judge another Christian or another denomination or something as less valuable, less of a Christian than us, not as baptized as us, doesn't have all three baptisms. What we're saying is that we're basically putting ourselves in the place of God and saying, no, that person's less valuable, right? They're not as big of a deal as part of the body as us. Paul has some strong words about that, as we will see and have seen and will continue to see. And we need to remember that we are not God. This is all, we're part of the body under God. Not as baptized. So what do we take away from this week? How do we apply this week? Correct, Cass. There's no B-list Christians. Yeah, that's a good point. I'll be real honest with you guys. The humility and gentleness piece, that is something that I have struggled with pretty strongly. The tricky thing about pride is everybody else can see it but you, right? So it makes it a very difficult thing to deal with. And I have been the guy who has stood in judgment of other people pretty harshly when I have a lot of the same flaws in myself. And I've been very convicted lately that I need to back off that, need to stop doing that. What else? How do we apply this week? It's a good practical application, Doctor. Stop looking for fights. Yep. Maybe don't walk into conversations and be like, how can I use this to put everybody else down and make myself look good? Don't do that. If we were to take that phrase and make it a positive thing, like we talked about, perhaps we would say we should be eager to maintain the unity of the spirit and the bond of peace. I don't know. look for ways to maintain the unity, right? Yeah, that's a very good point, Kessa. That's a good point too, Mario. Yep. Somebody said, I saw this, but I came across it a few weeks ago. They're talking about one of the bad struggles that they just found out that one of their friends was having. had no idea of it, and their conclusion was treat one another gently because we don't know what we're going through, what the other person's going through all the time. I think that's good advice. Treat one another gently.
It's kind of an interesting thing to hear, especially in the West, where sarcasm and such is so often is just kind of a hallmark of what we think of as friends. And when we're sarcastic here, certainly, but I see emblems of sarcasm everywhere. I'll never forget that bumper sticker: "Sarcasm, the body's natural defense against stupid." But that does kind of fly in the face of that. You don't know what people are going through, and I've lived long enough to see how that really does take hold, and how that's very, very true, because you don't know. There have been times I've said something very innocently and it touched someone both positively and negatively at different times, because I didn't know where they were at. And so, yeah, it's that there's that sense of compassion, and even on compassion unawares, but always that idea that stems from the central core idea of humility. You don't know where this person has been, and so humbly approach them with that sense of gentleness.
It's a very good point. Yeah. What else?
That's true.
That's
no
true.
one would expect that.
No one would expect that.
I mean, I wouldn't be looking for that. That would. Sit down. Are you feeling okay? Are you all right? Can I get you something? What's going on?
No, good. I agree with everything you guys said. It's good. I would also add that I think we view this as kind of like an optional thing sometimes. This being the Christian community aspect of the gospel, almost like it's a secondary objective, like in a video game. Primary objective: keep people from hell. Secondary objective: live in community. And that's not what Paul's saying. This is part of the primary objective, and it's not going to be fully realized here on this earth, but it will be fully realized one day, and we should be working towards it now as well. So the unity and the oneness of the body, the importance of community and treating with one another with humility and gentleness and patience, that is every bit as central to the gospel and to our calling, as Paul says here in the previous chapter, as the whole saving us from damnation thing is. All right, we're not just saved from something, we're saved to something. So it's not a secondary objective, if you will. It's part of the message. Mario raised his hands and got all sorts of charismatic responses. Go ahead, Mario.
I'm loading here. There it is. Just thought of this one.
The chat has officially gone off the rails.
Yep, we're gone.
Which is how we know it's time to close this out in prayer. So
The Babylon Bee has left its mark. Well done, everyone.
This is not Bible B.
No, not yours. We're down in the chat.
Yep.
Oh, that one. Okay. I wonder if you were to do that in class as well, when I raise my hand or something.
Oh, we would.
You ain't telling.
All right. Any closing prayer requests that we didn't get the first time?